When people talk about the electric vehicle revolution, they show you the same handful of things. A Tesla in a driveway, a row of charging stations, an e-bike parked outside a coffee shop. That's the future the algorithm likes because it's familiar and familiar performs well. But there's a whole category of electric machines that almost never reaches your screen. There are no handlebars, no seat, not even a second wheel to keep you upright. Just a person standing on a single tire, carving down the street like they're surfing on pavement. They're called personal electric vehicles, and one of them has been clocked at more than 75 miles per hour on a single wheel, standing up. Most people have never even heard of it. So let's go find them. The umbrella term is PEV, short for personal electric vehicle, and it covers more than you'd expect. E-bikes and e-scooters live under it. So do electric skateboards. But the two strangest members of the family are the ones we're here for. The first is the Onewheel, a self-balancing board with a single fat go-kart tire mounted right in the middle where you stand sideways and lean like a snowboarder. The second is the electric unicycle, usually shortened to EUC, a tall powered wheel that you stand beside, with foot plates on either side and absolutely nothing to hold on to. Here's the part that breaks people's brains the first time they watch one. You are not balancing these sauce machines side to side the way you'd balance a regular bicycle. The machine balances itself forward and backward hundreds of times a second using the same kind of sensors inside your phone. Your job is mostly to point it and trust it. And once people learn to trust it, they tend to get obsessed. Onewheels alone have been ridden across 139 countries, covering more than 170 million miles by over 300,000 riders worldwide. That's not a niche hobby. Fit. That's a global movement. That's a global movement that the internet's biggest video platform mostly forgot to film. To understand how we got here, you have to start in a garage in Northern California. The Onewheel began with a snowboarder who missed the mountain. His name is Kyle Dorkson. He grew up in Calgary, came to the United States to study at Stanford, and walked away with a master's degree in mechanical engineering. He spent years at the design firm IDEO, the company famous for shaping how modern products look and feel. But on nights and weekends, starting around 2008, he was tinkering with a different idea entirely. He wanted to take the sensation of carving through fresh powder on a snowboard and bring it to flat pavement on a single wheel. His first working prototype was not pretty. It was a chain-driven contraption running on an Arduino microcontroller, powered by lead-acid batteries he'd scavenged from an old security light. The Onewheel community affectionately calls that original machine Old Iron Sides. By his own account, Dorkson stepped onto it with low expectations. Then he wrote it, and everything changed. Friends wrote it and immediately asked him to build them one. The thing that was never supposed to be a product started insisting on becoming one. In 2013, he quit his job to chase it full-time. In January 2014, he launched the Onewheel on Kickstarter with a goal of $100,000. Within 3 weeks, backers had pushed it past $630,000. And then, Dorkson made the decision that has defined his company ever since. Instead of shipping production overseas, like almost everyone in hardware does, he built the Onewheel in the United States. His company, Future Motion, runs a factory in Santa Cruz, California, that is now the largest manufacturer of light electric vehicles in the country. Over the next decade, the lineup grew. The original Onewheel led to the Onewheel Plus, then the Plus XR, then the smaller, lighter Pint and Pint X, and then the high-performance GT and GTS series. That top GTS series model carries a single go-kart style tire, reaches about 25 miles per hour, and travels up to roughly 25 miles on a charge. Inside that hub is an electric motor packed with motion sensors that recalibrate thousands of times every second. Lean forward, and it accelerates. Lean back, and it slows. The board does the balancing. You do the carving. But the Onewheel is only half of this hidden world. The other half is even stranger, and it didn't come from a snowboarder. It came from a serial inventor in a small town in Washington state. His name is Shane Chen, and he is responsible for one of the most copied designs in modern transportation. Working out of Camas, Washington, under his company Inventors, Chen filed a provisional patent in March 2010 for something he called the Solo Wheel. The concept came from a simple question he asked himself as a skater. What if you put a single wheel between your legs, the way you glide on one foot in inline skating, and let a gyroscope keep it upright? He tried it, and it worked. That first solo wheel had a 15,500 watt motor and topped out around 10 miles per hour. It was designed as transportation, a way to glide the last stretch of a commute. What happened next is a story Chen tells with some frustration. His designs got copied fast, mostly by manufacturers overseas, and the patent battles went nowhere. But out of that flood of imitation, an entire industry took shape. Companies in Shenzhen, China, began refining the electric unicycle into something Chen's original solo wheel could never have imagined. InMotion and King Song both emerged around 2012. A brand called Gotway, now known as Bigode, arrived in 2014. Later came Leaperkim, known to riders as Veteran. Each one pushed the wheel further, faster, and stronger. And the way these machines stay upright is genuinely clever. Inside every EUC is a cluster of sensors, accelerometers, gyroscopes, and a magnetometer constantly measuring the wheel's angle and motion. The control system treats the rider and wheel like an inverted pendulum, a broomstick, balanced on a fingertip, and it makes tiny corrections faster than any human reflex could. The wheel keeps you balanced front to back. You steer by twisting and tilting with your feet and hips. There's no chain, no shifting, no handlebars. Just lean. Now, here's where this hidden category stops being quaint and starts being almost unbelievable. Shane Chen's solo wheel did 10 miles per hour. The wheels being built today operate in a completely different universe. Take the King Song 18 XL Pro. On paper, its maker lists a 2200 watt motor that peaks at 4600 watts, producing a 140 newton meters of torque, a top speed near 37 miles per hour, the ability to climb 40-degree inclines, and a 1554 watt-hour Samsung battery that's rated for up to 87 miles of range. That is a commuter wheel you could ride from one city to the next without recharging, and it climbs hills a mountain bike would struggle with. And that's not even the fast end. King Song advertises a flagship called the F22 Pro with a 12,000 watt motor and a claimed top speed above 130 kilometers per hour. Those are manufacturer numbers, so take them with appropriate caution. But the independent testing tells the same story. One reviewer, who has been measuring real-world EUC performance since 2019, strapped instruments to an InMotion P6 and personally clocked it at 75.2 miles per hour, calling it the fastest production wheel he had ever ridden. His secret was a record-breaking 235-volt electrical system, a huge jump over the typical 126 to 151 volts most wheels run. Sit with that for a second. 75 miles per hour, faster than the speed limit on most highways, on a single tire, standing up, with nothing to hold on to. This exists, it's sold to the public right now, and almost nobody is making videos about it. Riders describe the sensation with the same word over and over: float. That's not an accident. It's exactly the feeling Doerksen was chasing when he built that first prototype in his garage. When the machine is balancing for you, doing its silent math hundreds of times a second, the experience isn't like riding a bike or a scooter. It's like the ground turned into water and you learn to surf it. The motor is constantly nudging the contact patch of the tire back underneath your center of gravity, so that whenever you start to fall forward, the wheel quietly drives forward to catch you. You lean, it responds. You stop thinking about it, and it starts to feel like flying low to the ground. But that feeling depends entirely on one thing. The machine has to keep balancing. And that is exactly where this story turns serious. Every self-balancing PEV has a limit. There is only so much power a motor can deliver, and only so fast it can correct. Push past that limit by accelerating too hard, climbing too steep a hill, or simply demanding more than the motor can give, and the machine can stop balancing without warning. On an Onewheel, riders call it a nosedive. The front of the board suddenly drops, the tire digs in, and the rider gets thrown forward at whatever speed they were traveling. It happens in a fraction of a second, often with no time to react. That risk became a national safety story. The US Consumer Product Safety Commission documented 4 deaths connected to Onewheels between 2019 and 2021, all from head trauma, and in at least 3 of those 4 cases, the rider was not wearing a helmet. There were also dozens of serious injury reports: traumatic brain injuries, paralysis, broken bones, torn ligaments. In November 2022, the CPSC took the unusual step of publicly warning people to stop using all Onewheel models. Future Motion initially pushed back hard, rejecting what it called unjustified and alarmist claims, and saying it saw no reason for riders to stop. Then, on September 29, 2023, the company reversed course and issued a voluntary recall of roughly 300,000 boards, every model it had ever made, from the original through the GT, sold from 2014 onward, at prices between $1,050 and $2,200. In the months after the recall went public, consumer advocates surfaced additional deaths that hadn't been counted before, including a 63-year-old man in 2022 and a 41-year-old woman in 2023. As part of the fix, Future Motion rolled out a firmware feature called haptic buzz, which makes the board vibrate and beep when you approach its limits or run low on battery, giving riders the warning the earlier boards never had. Electric unicycles carry their own version of this danger, just at much higher speeds. That's why the serious EUC community treats protective gear as non-negotiable, full-face helmets, wrist guards, the works. These machines are thrilling precisely because they're powerful, and that power demands respect. None of this means the category is doomed. It means it's real, with real physics and real consequences, which is more than you can say for most of what trends online. There's one more reason these vehicles stay in the shadows, and it has nothing to do with how they ride. It's the law. PEVs arrived faster than the rules could keep up, and they don't fit neatly into any existing box. They're not quite bicycles, not quite scooters, not quite motorcycles. So the legal map is a patchwork that changes the moment you cross a city or state line. In some places, Onewheels and EUCs are treated like electric skateboards and allowed in bike lanes and on roads with speed limits under 25 miles per hour. In others, the picture is murkier. Delaware, for example, bans electric skateboards from public roads, sidewalks, and rights-of-way entirely, meaning you can carry one across the street but not ride it there. And lawmakers are racing to catch up, often after tragedy. Illinois has moved to cap these devices at 28 miles per hour and require licensing and insurance for anything faster. New Jersey passed some of the strictest micromobility rules in the country in early 2026, prompted by a string of fatal crashes. Behind all of it is a sobering trend that regulators keep citing. Micromobility injuries and deaths across the United States roughly tripled between 2019 and 2022 as these vehicles exploded in popularity. So riders end up navigating not just traffic, but a confusing, shifting set of rules that no two towns seem to agree on. That uncertainty is one more reason the whole scene stays underground. Which brings us back to the question we started with. Why does YouTube never show you this? Part of it is simple. The category doesn't fit. It's not a car, so the auto channels skip it. It's not a traditional bike, so the cycling world barely acknowledges it. The hardware is niche, the footage is rare, and platforms reward what's already familiar. A Onewheel nosedive, or a 75 mile per hour unicycle, is the opposite of familiar, so the algorithm quietly leaves it out of the story it tells you about the electric future. But the riders are out there anyway. More than 300,000 of them on Onewheels alone, 170 million miles logged across 139 countries. A whole global community of EUC riders who call themselves wheelers, gathering in cities around the world to ride together. An American factory in Santa Cruz still building single-wheeled boards by hand instead of shipping the work overseas. Inventors like Shane Chen, who sketched a wild idea on a notepad and accidentally launched an entire industry. Look at the culture itself. Because the legal landscape is so hostile and mainstream platforms remain indifferent, the community has built its own physical infrastructure from scratch. Walk into a grassroots event like the Amped Electric Games in Arkansas or Float Life Fest in North Carolina, and you will not see casual tech enthusiasts. You will find dirt track racers decked out in full-face motocross helmets, padded motorcycle jackets, and hard-shell knee guards, hitting dirt jumps and bank turns on 100-pound electric unicycles. They wear that heavy armor because these machines lack mechanical failsafes. If a rider leans too aggressively and overpowers the motor's ability to balance, a phenomenon the community grimly calls a cutout, the wheel simply drops. There are no physical brakes to squeeze, no clutch to pull. Gravity takes over instantly. To prevent that, independent modifiers and third-party repair shops have created a booming shadow industry. They design custom battery packs with higher discharge limits, reinforced spiked foot pads to lock riders in, and aftermarket suspension linkages that turn rigid street wheels into off-road tanks. It is a garage hacker culture reminiscent of early hot rodders, flashing custom firmware and pushing motors past factory limits just to see what the hardware can handle. The electric vehicle revolution everyone keeps promising you isn't only happening in driveways and showrooms. A quieter, stranger version of it is happening right now on sidewalks and bike paths, on single wheels, balanced by silent computers making thousands of decisions a second. Most of it never makes it onto camera, but now you know it's there. And the next time you see someone glide past, standing on one wheel like the laws of physics took the day off, you'll know exactly what you're looking at.